Hello, EggChasers. It's the EggChasers Rugby podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. Back in the rugby dungeon again, as we close in on 10 years of podcasting, bringing you rugby every single Monday morning, 52 weeks a year. And this podcast, all about the Six Nations Round 4. I'm Tim with JB.
Hello, Tim.
Barefooted for his OnlyFans fans.
Sign up, please.
And Phil in trail shoes, like he's just run up a fell.
It's very, very wet out there tonight, Tim.
It is.
So I've got to be prepared.
Got your heavy treads on.
Exactly.
Nice. We're contact@eggchasers@gmail.com. I'll pepper the pod with some emails. And you can support us if you appreciate the podcast and the fact we're there for you every single week, not just when Six Nations is on, but when there's no rugby on, unlike many other grassroots level podcasts. You can go to patreon.com/eggchasers. How good is this year's Six Nations? We're getting fed up of saying it.
Is it that good?
It is.
I'm not sure it's
so
that good,
much
is it?
fun. It is.
Well, fun for who?
Well,
not England fans.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that as someone that was at Twickenham and sat through.
Were you?
Sat through that, yeah.
You've done some travelling this Six Nations, Tim. Fair play.
At what stage did you take your England fan hat off and just admire the French, the skill and the power of that French team?
It was 25-3. Was that the point? I think that was an honest, genuinely, and I remember, I think it might be like 2008, something like that. I may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but I saw, I went to Old Trafford, someone at work had a ticket, and I went to see Champions League semi-final, Manchester United v Barcelona. And I remember watching it thinking, I feel so privileged to watch Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And I felt the same watching Antoine Dupont. That guy is just I feel lucky to be alive at a time when that man is playing rugby union. He's one of those talents.
And it's not just him, because he's unbelievable. He did some incredible things yesterday, but he probably wasn't the best player on the pitch.
Nope.
Ramos was amazing. Pinot was amazing.
Aldrit
was outstanding.
He was so good.
Olivon was fabulous. Flamont was incredible.
Fickou wasn't too shabby.
Fickou was good.
Dante was great.
Dante's really important, isn't he?
He is. His
Super
work on the floor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
I
say.
like Demortier as well.
Yeah. Demortier is nice.
Oh, we could just name the whole French team.
Basically, if you're wearing a blue shirt, you were very, very good yesterday. Probably Ramos. I loved Olivon yesterday. I thought he was class.
I mean, it's incredibly handsome. If it was a tie-break for man of the match, give it to him because he's the best looking.
Well, and I said this before, I'll say it again. He looks like a World Cup winning captain. He looks like...
You're right.
Maybe he's just so chiselled and handsome and athletic and tall. He's got everything that you want.
If you were, what corporations are going to be if Olivon lifts the World Cup? What corporations are going to be fighting to have his signature on there? So many companies are going to be saying, here's a blank check.
And Jerry's.
No, it's going to be Gillette, isn't it?
Hershey's?
He'd do Gillette, or is he too masculine for Gillette?
He's far too masculine for Gillette. Goodness me.
Some of the recent Gillette adverts, definitely too much.
Not okay. Yeah. Maybe they'll go for him and he can be the not okay bro. He can go approaching women and someone else, no, not okay bro.
Who would be the person saying not okay bro? Galtier.
No, not Galtier. It'd have to be someone...
It'd have to be someone massive.
No, because what happened? No, isn't it a black guy? He says that tells the predatory white guy in the Gillette advert, not okay, bro. Ugo would be so good for that. Not okay, bro.
Did you see, actually, I mentioned Galtier. Man, that guy looks cool. But did you see his... I didn't understand what was being said, but I just saw a clip of him on the French TV interview and just crying.
Really?
He was really emotional after the game.
So I've not seen that.
I'm assuming it was just from pride and that they've built up to this. There was a lot of talk I was hearing, I don't know if you heard the same thing, that France had this game targeted as a really important moment for this squad.
Because it's been a long time.
It's been 2005 since they last won.
Yes.
Yep.
At Twickenham.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's more important because the measure of a good team is not necessarily winning every week. It is, but not necessarily. It's how you react to a loss. And that was a superb way to react.
Yes. It was an absolute beatdown.
Because people were starting to question, weren't they? Are they that good? Are they a bit flat? They struggled a bit against who?
Ireland 2 games ago.
Italy, they gave them a scare.
Yeah, Italy gave them a scare. Ireland 2 games ago beat them. And
Scotland could have.
Yeah, and in the Ireland game in the second half, France barely fired a shot.
Yeah.
In the first half, it was end-to-end stuff, but Ireland really controlled the game second half. And Scotland, had they have not had that bonkers first however many minutes, 15 minutes, Scotland could have won that as well. So France have been a mixed bag so far this tournament, but that was quite an emphatic statement.
Yeah, and players that have had little question marks next to them. Cyril Bay was immense. Aldrit was just world class again. Olivon at the same. So, and these are guys that maybe haven't been operating at the level that they have. So, yeah, it was a huge statement from France.
Now, it was made, I can't help but think, it's right to credit France.
That is the right way round to do it.
Yeah, definitely right. We've done this the right way. But England were so poor. I really can't remember a time when they were this poor. Even, like, Eddie Jones collapsing in the autumn last year, downfall 2018.
Yeah,
I can't remember them basically giving up
and
in the way that they did.
And a few stats back that up. That was the third heaviest defeat ever for an England team. The only two that were greater were the tour from hell.
Yeah,
when all those youngsters went down to Australia. Those are the two heavier. The heaviest defeat at Twickenham, and 4 years ago, England beat France 44-8.
Wow!
So that was in the run-up
to the last
World Cup. Yeah.
So, are there any winners from this England performance?
In terms of players?
Yeah, well, anything. What are the...
Eddie Jones will be laughing.
Eddie Jones is a winner, I think. I think the people who... Well... Does Owen Farrell win from this? So all the talk...
Really.
I don't think he does. But all sort of leading up... George Ford, does he win?
Maybe, but he played for Sale, who got hammered by London Irish today.
Zach Mercer,
yeah.
Maybe. I mean, maybe back rows that weren't playing.
Yeah, any back row that wasn't playing. I mean, yeah.
So hear me out here. Do you think this is me trying to put a good spin on it for you boys, because I don't really care. But do you think you're seeing shades of the early Leicester project, which is, let's see who is good, let's see who is bad. So this is such a pivotal game, but ultimately it doesn't mean anything, does it? Because the World Cup's around the corner, and the World Cup has driven everybody insane. So that's why Borthwick's even in the job at the moment. That's why Gatland's in a job at the moment. That's why all of these. Eddie Jones has got a job, right?
Yeah, a different job to the one he had.
The World Cup
4 months ago
drives unions insane because it's the biggest prize in rugby. So with that, although this is a huge result for those who paid the money to go and watch the game, it's not really that big. If they win the World Cup, no one will care.
Yeah. So
do you think there's an element of, okay, massive game? For all of those wanting Marcus Smith, for all of those wanting Don Brandt, here you go. And if he's good enough, awesome. If he's not, we'll never see them again.
He didn't really make any changes. Marcus Smith aside, he didn't make any changes.
Yeah, because
so I don't see that.
Well, I do with Marcus. I can get that logic with Marcus Smith. I don't really with Don Brandt, because he was the man wearing the shirt. He was actually, as we've said recently, he was actually starting to play well. The game 2 weeks ago against Wales, he actually looked pretty good. In this game, he looked... I mean, he's not alone. Is there any player in this England performance who comes out with any real credit?
Actually, I thought Genge did all right. I think Sinclair was awful. But actually, the scrimmage went okay.
Yeah,
the scrimmage was good.
Scrum was good.
Yep.
Line out and maul were good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Set piece was good.
That's it. That's where it ends.
What does that remind you of?
It is. And even in the... Because even those players you've mentioned, it's like Genge, scrimmage well, always works incredibly hard. There were times where he was taking backward steps just because of the sheer ferocity of the French carry-in that allowed them then to get the offload game going, which allowed them more ferocious carry-in, which allowed them space out wide, which made England look awful.
And one thing about Genge as well is he is a superb player. We know this. But he's not massive. So... When you're lining up against your opposite man, the scrimmaging was fine. You can get away with being a smaller prop in the scrimmages. But like the carrying, I mean, those French lads just need to fall into someone and they make yards. England didn't really have that kind of advantage, if any.
Yeah, they had a huge disadvantage.
And
I
think before we get into the
field.
specifics of the game, which absolutely we should, I just think we should just like bird's eye view it for a second. And the conclusion I came to as I was sat watching that and reflecting on it was, and this is something we've been saying, we love the Premiership. It's very competitive. It is so far from being, quote, the best league in the world now. It clouds our judgment of how good England should be. The Premiership is brilliantly entertaining.
Yes, it is.
Very competitive, but the standard has dropped immeasurably over the last few years, and that is what we're seeing when you take really good Premiership players and chuck them against a world-class team. They get monstered.
And let's just go back a second here, because we're saying really good Premiership players. Well, the idea was the Premiership would keep some of the really good Premiership players, and actually it would pepper the world-class England international stars throughout the squads, as they would be paid effectively by England. That was the idea. I think what's actually happened is it's gutted the Premiership, and then it's reduced the standard of these stars. And then the standard of the stars, the remaining stars, the Premiership just doesn't see. It's a real problem, because when you start taking away the bits and pieces in the Premiership, and I'm not against it, actually, I do think the Premiership is a wonderfully entertaining league, and if you have that entertainment and coaching with the French players, great, absolutely great. But just the size of the French league has this sort of steel sharpens steel quality, and it's a problem, because when was the last time that any of the England boys faced a team as big as France? They do a little bit in Europe, but they're not ready for it.
Yeah. You see, like, one of the most physical teams sail with a load of South Africans. Buffering their pack when they went away to La Rochelle last year.
Toulouse.
And Toulouse this year, yeah. The La Rochelle one was, because that was quarter-final.
Yeah, that wasn't, they didn't get beaten up physically. I remember distinctly, they got beaten up emotionally.
Well, as well as getting beaten up emotionally, they were put in a bin physically.
I don't think they were, mate. I'm sure that I heard the interview, and actually they didn't lose the emotional battle. They weren't emotionally right themselves, so but, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, the problems are vast. Like, we could talk about individual players, but no individual player, or even no handful of players, even a completely different 15, nothing changes when France turn up like that. England. Yeah. So this is the conclusion. You're right to talk about, and as you regularly talk about how can England be this bad with this pool of players? You're correct in that they have a massive pool of players, but the ceiling of those players is nowhere near where you imagine it is. It's England's players are average, bang average.
It's hard.
Yeah, how? Because I came away with that same thought. And then I question myself today to say, is that right? Because that is what I concluded after this game. Or is it the fact that they are just... There's a combination of things, but then you got world-class players, or formerly world-class players, not playing in the right system, playing in weaker teams week in, week out. And you are not getting the best. Now, I think it's probably a bit of both. Yeah, no,
I'll just briefly contradict myself as well, because I was watching Scotland today thinking, if Luke Dempsey was in a Premiership team, he would get overlooked as being not good enough, and he looks great at international level. So I'm contradicting myself at the same time. I don't know. This is how confused I am by the whole situation. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do.
Now, the bit that Borthwick has spoken a lot about this, and I think Borthwick is brilliant regardless of what happened yesterday. He said, as you would always do, England are 3 games into a journey. This was their 4th game.
Did he say journey? He say journey?
He did say journey.
He did that a lot at Leicester.
He did say journey.
We're on a journey.
France are 4 years into a journey. This started with Galtier coming in after 2019. Mm-hmm. So you are comparing teams at different stages of their journeys. But to me...
Destination is the same.
Well, the destination is the same, but also that 3 years, 3 games for international, what should be international caliber players, that should be the difference between, say, a 10 and 12 point loss. Like, if you're that far, if you've both got international caliber players, 3 games into a journey compared to 3 years into a journey, that should not be a 43 point hammering, absolute hammering. It was men against boys at times.
It was, and that's what was so mind blowing is watching Jack Willis just getting ragdolled at breakdown. It's like, but this is Jack Willis. He's great.
Like Jack Willis is also, moving mountains in
France. Yeah,
in Toulouse.
Playing brilliantly in Toulouse.
Yeah, and Lewis Ludlam. Oh yeah, he's really physical, abrasive, like monstered.
Yeah,
it was mad. So I suppose.
Well, it has happened in the past, like the game when France beat England, not for the Grand Slam, but we were in Madrid. And France were terrible, and they just manhandled them.
Yeah.
And it can happen on occasions. You can just be a little bit off.
So, is there any England player that you would put into a France or an Ireland 15?
A France or no?
No.
I don't think there is there?
Tom Curry. Tom Curry gets in probably
over who?
Maybe it's 6 for France over because you got Craw
with Jelonch. Although Craw was wicked.
He was good.
He speeds up their ball so much.
Tom Curry is he'd be in contention for anything. Maybe a Itoje in the back row for France.
No.
He looks like he'd fit in there.
This is one of the things.
I think
when was the last world class game from Maro Itoje? He's come out and said in the Times this week in an interview that he's been carrying a vague, nondescript. Well, he didn't just say what it was. I'm not saying he said it was vague. He's been carrying had a long-term illness which has been affecting his performance. But he has moments, but you just see him like, where are you, Maro?
Yeah, he was not particularly noticeable.
No.
In terms of the way that this went, there's 2 frustrating things watching England. One, so I spoke of in this Six Nations about where Ireland won the game against France, which was in the second half, where they had Ross Byrne playing and they just kicked corners.
Yep.
And they kicked very intelligently. They found grass. They forced the big French pack to turn and they forced them to play out, which 19 times out of 20 works well. 1 time in 20 they score a worldly try, but it worked in that scenario. England seemed to do the opposite. In the first half, they ran everything.
Yeah.
And this was, I think it was a misread on 2 counts. One, it was a misread of that kicking strategy that I think other teams can kick better than France when you put pressure on them. But also, it seemed to be that they wanted to move that French team around as if England were fitter than that French team. And I think that is now, it's a historic lazy trope that was used for the French teams of old. It is no longer applicable. That French team are phenomenally well conditioned. They are big. They've got enormous replacements, but they are fit and they can keep going. It is, on both of those counts, it was the wrong tactic and England paid big time for it.
Well, there's wrong tactic. And the other area of criticism I think that England deserve is, and it's hard to sort of quantify this because I think Harlequins, Marcus Smith basically carries the show on his shoulders, and if he doesn't, maybe his supporting playmaker is Danny Kerr rather than one of the other backs, because there's not a playmaker in Harlequins outside of Smith.
Esterhazen can play a bit, but he's not. It's not
you,
like
you are right.
Yeah, it's
Danny
not
Kerr
like
and Marcus
a second true playmaker.
So you've got Marcus Smith trying to run the show, and I guess his help would be Henry Slade. Henry Slade doesn't seem to do it at the moment. I don't know why. I love Henry Slade. I think he's got all the tools to be a world-class player. He's just not really kicked on that next, and I'm waiting for it, and I think I'll still play him. But
he's had a quiet tournament, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you think maybe a Farrell and Daly combo from fullback would give you a little bit more zip, a little bit more attacking threat. But of course, with Daly being out,
Daly at 13 is looking like a shout.
I thought Daly at 15. Let him dip in and out of the game.
Or Lawrence moved to 13.
Yeah, well, I said on last week's pod, I think the decision that Steve Borthwick will be making is not Smith or Farrell. It will be Farrell or Slade.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that, because just Slade, what's he doing at the moment? It's not much, is it?
Not a lot. The other side of it was the England defence and just how much they were manhandled. And they've kind of been... So they've been playing under Sinfield. They've been playing more of a soft defence, more of a drift defence, except a couple of times against Scotland where it badly went wrong, where someone jumped out the line. But generally they've been softer, which has the negative effect of you're a bit more passive in tackles, so teams can get a bit more go forward. But it should have the positive effect of, well, ultimately there's less gaps in your field because you are kind of conceding yards to prevent those gaps. In this game, it had both of those weaknesses at the same time.
So right.
Conceding yards, were incredibly passive, which allowed offloads, and just enormous gaps everywhere. Enormous gaps when you shouldn't get it in with that style of defence.
So just on the specific fly half thing, all I want to say on this matter is the criticism Owen Farrell has been getting, and this is just I won't labour it because I've said this. The criticism that Owen Farrell has got from many people, particularly online, England fans, is ridiculous and totally unjustified. The man is one of the greatest players ever to have pulled on an England jersey.
Is he great enough to play for France or Ireland?
No, not currently.
No, not right now.
Not currently. But he is absolutely exceptional. And Marcus Smith is a great option. George Ford's a great option. They're all great options. Whoever wears that 10 shirt does not make a jot of difference. Can we just stop having this argument?
It does make a difference.
Now.
I couldn't disagree more.
In this game, it doesn't matter if it's Marcus Smith, George Ford, Owen Farrell, or the Prophet Muhammad. England are getting hammered in this game, regardless who's wearing that 10 shirt.
I can't agree with that, boys. I can't agree with that. So, they might have lost, but a world-class fly half who can make something out of nothing. I mean, they're getting to the stage now where they're so important, they're almost like NFL quarterbacks. So if you get someone who can, you don't need your big runners to run over people going straight. You can do it using a bit of deception. You can do it by making the opposition pull numbers into their backfield because you're kicking so well and your awareness of spaces is so good. There's loads of ways to skin a cat, and I actually think the reason that England are in this problem now is because they have no one who is that exceptional world-class talent who is the next level above. There's no Finn Russell there. There's no Geordie Barrett, the other Barrett. Bowden Barrett. There's none of these guys. I think there could be.
There's a little WhatsApp chat where you said you need to have someone unconventional and unpredictable and pull a rabbit out of a hat. Well, if you want that, Marcus Smith is the closest we've got to that. But my response to that was, have a look at the 10s that have won World Cups. They're fairly conventional 10s.
Well, they are. That's the thing,
very
isn't
much so.
And yeah.
I look back, actually, because I thought Morné Steyn won the World Cup for South Africa in 2007.
2007?
Do you know who the starting fly half was?
Butch James.
Correct.
No, he is unconventional.
He's unconventional, but not in the Finn Russell or Marcus Smith way.
No, but he's definitely unconventional.
Crash ball 10.
Yes.
Love it.
In a Kelly Haimawina style way.
Oh, yeah, I missed him out of my list.
Hang on,
yeah.
What's Kelly Haimawina doing?
I thought... For what it's worth, I thought when Farrell came on, and he also came on at the same time as Mitchell, there was a little bit more shape that actually seemed to threaten France. And all Farrell did was something very simple: straightened up the line, had a few different options, picked the right one. Ollie Lawrence on the short pop, who made some yards. Next phase, Stewart goes in.
Yeah,
it was fairly simple. Whereas there was the goose steps and the trying to go on your own and getting absolutely marmalised didn't work. I thought Smith did some nice things, and again, I'm not making this Smith or Farrell. I'm just trying to say. All the chat about who should be 10, you should be. It's like it's.
I mean, just think about
it's bollocks.
The wizardry of
England have got far bigger issues.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean that French pack is exceptional. Okay, they're huge. They're brilliant, so on and so forth. But the wizardry of Antoine Dupont does make things so much easier.
He's amazing.
It just makes those 20 stone guys play like 25 stone guys. And that's all I can say, because he's always creating space. So if you've got your eyes on Dupont, what about all of the rest of it? And I think that's what the point is trying to make with the fly half.
Yeah, it was simple things done really well. The first try for Ramos was Charles Olivon running hard, going north, and getting the offload off. That was it.
Yeah,
that was
Olivon and Flamont.
Olivon and Flamont.
Yeah.
Offload
was
try.
Olivon scored?
No, it was Ramos.
Ramos scored.
It was Olivon made the break. Simple offload to Flamont. I say simple. It was hard, but
draws a couple
basic.
of players.
Draw a couple of players. Contact, offload. Flamont to Demortier to Ramos try.
Oh, no, what was on where the back row scored?
Olivon. That was the
back of the scrum.
Back of the scrum.
Where the commentator, I can't remember which one it was, said, this looks steady here, and then England started folded in. Aldrit picks up. Draws a couple of players.
Runs over Marcus Smith.
Yeah, pass inside, and it was
Olivon
ran over. And in fairness, Olivon,
I know,
18 stone, travelling full speed. It doesn't really matter who's on the try line there. He's scoring that regardless.
Look, quick email here from Nick Pearce. Nick, thank you very much. Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. The Premiership is not producing test-quality players, and the result is England's record over the last 18 months. It may be high-scoring and fun to watch, but objectively not providing the England coach with 30 or so players able to compete with the best in the world. For a few years now, English club rugby fans have assumed the Premiership ability will translate to the test arena. This is demonstrably not the case. There could be no better example than the 7 days Marcus Smith just had. On the first Saturday, he ran riot at Twickenham, picking off a desperately poor Exeter and looking $1 million. 2 days of newspaper columns saying Smith had sent a message to Borthwick was all it took. The Quinn regained his starting berth, even though Farrell Lawrence Slade had been making steady progress in the previous 2 games. Fast forward a few days, and the same player on the same pitch looked far from $1 million and more like a promising but scratchy academy player. This, to me, was the latest piece of clear evidence that there is a huge difference now between looking good in the Gallagher Premiership and competing at test level. And he points out Smith is by no means the only player that this accounts for.
It's hard to disagree with that.
It's hard to disagree.
Yeah, the stark contrast between Mark Smith at Twickenham absolutely lighting up the show and looking incredible to this game, to being on the end of that hiding.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I was really worried about is I don't really see where England makes some changes. I don't think...
No, not really.
I mean, Maul is very good, but no. Not... tight head is a disaster area.
Yeah,
absolute
is not good.
Disaster area.
We flagged this for some time.
The front row coming off the bench, 65 minutes. Right, we need something here.
Dan Cole.
Mako, Dan Cole, Jack Walker, on you go.
Yeah, it's just not good enough, is it? It's just not frightening in any way. Then there's the second row. I mean, I love Chesham, but he's a young man, and he's a very young man. Very hard position. Very, very hard position. Sitting against those absolute monsters. Yeah. So, the back row is good. I think give the back row time, it'll be fine. I think England are covered there. And then the backs just don't seem to, what is the answer for the backs?
I don't know. It's easy to point at Jack Van Portfleet, who I think he was the poorest of the England players.
He's fine, though, I think. I think...
I'm the same. I think he had a terrible game, but I think he will be fine.
It's hard to throw him under a bus after that.
But this is a problem of Eddie Jones's creation.
Oh, 100%.
Because we've had years.
Same with Hooker. Like, Luke Cowan-Dickie is out, and and Jack Singleton. Oh, what do we do? Totally agree.
Years to blood another scrum half.
Although Ireland proved maybe we don't need hookers.
Yeah.
Just take the island approach.
I did like that island approach, which we'll come on to later. The England scrum half: Van Portfleet, Rafi Quirk,
Harry Randall's looked great in the last 2 weeks.
Harry Randall's looks ace. Mitchell's brilliant player.
Yeah, I like Mitchell.
Between them, you've got about a dozen or so, less than 20 England caps, something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
And in time, even less, as a consequence of Eddie Jones just continuing with Ben Youngs.
2 lads I was watching today who I think have England potential. And I know you'll laugh at me because nobody likes him, I love him. And he has played for England. Guy Porter was back. Mm-hmm. He gives you a real focal point. And the other one I thought carried really well was Seb Atkinson. Seb Atkinson, I like that boy a lot.
When's Dan Kelly back?
Great question, don't know.
Yeah. So, see, I like those too. But you're in a position now, you've got the Van Portfleet conundrum, which is great player, handful of test caps. Whoever comes in is going to have, maximum 3 or 4 games before they're actually starting in a World Cup.
Yeah,
it's kind of too late.
This is kind of why you got to. This is why you got to find out now. Yeah, it's why it's all right to play Don Brown. Why it's all right to play Smith. Why it's all right to play all these lads. Find out now.
Yeah. Well, you've got to. You've got to find out.
They're soon going to work it. They're soon going to work out who is good, who is bad, or who's. Oh no, they're all good.
If I can throw some positives, I thought I was really pleased that Ben Curry came on and did something that made an impact. He actually was the only person that seemed to compete at the breakdown effectively.
Bearing
in mind how poor his first game back was.
I'll give you a great positive. Puts Bill Sweeney under pressure. I mean, there's not a single thing that man has got right since he had the job, actually.
JB 2024.
Well, I'm just saying, there's not a single thing that man has got right and been supported by council pretty much at every single turn. And all of this is to boost England. And they looked woeful. And he's made all the wrong decisions. I mean, Borthwick is the right decision at the wrong time, which makes it, guess what? The wrong decision.
The wrong decision.
Well, it might be. I'm now. So At half-time in that game, I was like, this is over. They've just scored the amazing Olivon try with Aldry off the back. I was like, England, not only are England going to get nowhere near getting anything out of this game, they're going to get nothing out of the World Cup. So I watched the second half of this game, totally sanguine. Normally I would get, I'm a proper England fan, I will get annoyed when they lose. I was totally relaxed and calm, like a Buddhist monk watching the second half. And I almost now feel like the same way about the World Cup. Like I actually know exactly what you mean. Just enjoy the great rugby teams that are there. It was like watching Scotland Ireland today. I was just enjoying watching rugby. What a spectacle that was!
That was fantastic
for unusual reasons, which we will go on to. But I think to your point earlier, JB, I think Borthwick has to do a bit of what he did with Leicester. The World Cup is too soon. Like, I really don't think he can do what he either tries to get continuity and blows the World Cup and doesn't learn as much as he should do for future, or he totally blows the World Cup and he learns as much as he possibly can, testing everyone to destruction so that he can have a proper World Cup cycle going forward.
Let's just go back to the appointment of Steve Borthwick a second, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've got a small insight, I guess, into how other directors of rugby have been recruited. Mm-hmm. And this is within the Premiership. And the amount of work that goes into recruiting Premiership director of rugby now is so massive because you can't change a squad. Mm-hmm. So because you can't change a squad, you need to know the guy coming in likes your squad, he knows about it, the style of play that he has decided upon is going to match, he's going to bring in the right backroom staff. And I guess that process to eventually becoming a winning team, you need to understand it before you appoint that guy, because otherwise you're going to have a square peg in a round hole. And I wonder how much of that the RFU did. Mm-hmm. I wonder who the qualified people are to do it. Borthwick might be the right man for after the World Cup.
I'm certain he was.
Yeah. Eddie is not the right man for the World Cup. So maybe the solution there... I mean, would Rob Baxter do a better job with 6 games to go with his style of play and lend him off for Exeter? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because Borthwick's got a process and we know it. So when they interviewed him, what did they say? Where was the questioning? Like, okay, so we saw what you did with Leicester. You had to break a lot of careers before you got successful, but when you did it in a certain way, and that does look like international rugby. That's how Leicester play. But we've got how many games to World Cup? 6 games? Mm-hmm. So we've got 6 games.
Yeah.
4.
Right
4
now,
games.
3 warm-ups. Oh, is it 4 warm-ups?
3 or 4 warm-ups.
Yeah.
And one an Ireland away.
You need a short-term coach with the experience, almost like a Michael Checker type, who instantly makes an impact. I actually think that Baxter would be, just second Baxter. They've seconded Evans, so it can be done.
Mark McCall. Anybody. Anybody. Just like, but they've gone for Borthwick. So the danger they've got now, and because they're horribly... They did offer Warren Gatland.
Did they?
A short-term gig,
that would be a good one. That would be a great one.
They did offer it, but he took more. He took the cash at Wales.
Well, can't blame... Well, offer him more cash if you're serious. Yeah. I mean, they've spent enough on Borthwick. But the danger they've got now is they've spent, how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on Borthwick?
Oh, yeah, it is into the millions because of paying out Eddie Jones and then paying compensation to Leicester Tigers for Borthwick and Sinfield.
Now, I know you boys are fully aware, but the game is awash with cash at the moment. There's so much cash. So, spaffing a few million here and there, means nothing. But it does, doesn't it? It means something really significant. So dangerous. You've got the right guy, you bring him to the World Cup, he underperforms because of your incompetence.
And all of a sudden, the press are calling for him to get fired. And
because you're weak, you'll instantly get rid of that guy and then replace him with another wrong guy, and therefore the cycle continues.
Just out of interest, so I completely agree with that. I couldn't remember the name of Dan McKellen, so I just googled
Dan McKellen. What is Dan McKellen's name?
Can someone please tell me? Google, can you please tell me Dan McKellen's name? No, I googled Leicester Tigers Director of Rugby. Do you know what the first result is?
Dean Richards.
From LeicesterTigers.com. When you Google Leicester Tigers Director of Rugby, top result from their own website is Jordan Murphy, open brackets, Director of Rugby, Leicester Tigers.
No.
So this is a many years old article that is still the number one And still exists. Oh, there you go. That's the official Leicester Tigers page for their director of rugby, Jordan Murphy.
Maybe Leicester need to update that somewhat.
Do you know what? We can come back, and when we look ahead to next week, we can come back and talk about what changes we might make towards the end. But I think this might be a good springboard into the other podcast, just to bookend England. Unless there's anything specific you want to talk about.
No. I want to cast it out of my mind forever.
And this will sort of bookend it and also be a springboard into what we could talk about on the domestic podcast. This is from Matt Clifford, contact EggChasers@gmail.com. I had someone ask me, what's the blah, blah, blah bit at the start of emails about?
No, they came up with it.
So if you were... No. It was an organic thing which happened because I refused to to read out bits of emails that say things like, love the podcast, blah, blah. So I just go, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then people started emailing with, hi, guys, blah, etc.
It's because the praise on all of the start of our emails was so effusive.
Vast,
we were taking up hours and hours of recording time with it.
Quite. So we had to streamline it. But I like that we've started. Well, the reason I mention this is we've started getting a slight amendment to the organic first line of an email is starting to change, and you'll like this one, JB. Matt Clifford says, "Hi guys, great pod. I agree with JB. Blah blah blah."
Yes, there you go. Thank you. About time.
He says, "What are your thoughts on the?" We won't discuss this now, but we'll just put a pin in it. It's just an interesting, thought-provoking point. What are your thoughts on the causation versus correlation of the Saracens' salary scandal to where England and English rugby is now? I remember thinking at the time, English rugby was benefiting massively from the conveyor belt of talent coming out of North London, and that the excessive levels of punishment would have only one very negative effect on the national team. And 3.5 years later, here we are. I'm not doubting or downplaying either. The other factors at play, that has led to the national team to be this pathetic on the field, but also can't help think English rugby deserves the situation that it has caused for itself. I feel sorry for Steve Borthwick. He's clearly a great coach and a great leader. Interesting point.
It is an interesting one, and there's two sides to it as well. Actually, there's exactly that point about the conveyor belt of talent. There is also every team, so all the players playing in England almost have an international rugby style game twice a season, because the Saracens team, when they were when they were cheating, was so strong and so deep that even their second string, with players like Scout Brits and Jacques Berger,
great point,
and Scout Berger coming in for a period of time, and Vincent Koch and John Schmidt all those years ago, and you almost got battle hardened by playing the best team, and everyone wanted to beat Saracens because they were the best team, and it's one of my points. It's not my idea. It's from Soccernomics around the leagues can actually be stronger without a salary cap as a consequence of you want to be the kingmaker, you want the shot of the king. Now it's trade-offs, but
you have to get more creative in ways to beat teams which may be bigger, stronger, more talented, whatever.
Or they're spending twice the salary cap. It doesn't mean you can't beat them. It means you have to be more creative in order to beat them. But
it's an interesting point,
it was obviously definitely not a design of the old system, because the old Saracens cheating, not the old system.
Yeah.
They were cheating, like, categorically. It's just there might have been some benefits to some unexpected, unperceived benefits.
Some of the benefits are young Owen Farrell, Mako Vunipola, Maro Itoje, Jamie George, etc. The list goes on. Were playing deep into the Champions Cup against very, very good teams as well.
And they got the cohesiveness that, like,
Leinster.
Look at the Toulouse contribution to that France team in pivotal positions. There's something in it.
So what
I'm not sure I would condone it right now.
Yeah,
but
what we're saying is bring back cheating.
Bring back cheating, or just push up the salary cap to a level that is not ludicrous. Push it back up to the £7-8 million level, which means that some teams can spend it. Steve Lansdowne can spend his money.
Yeah, if that's how Bruce Craig wants to spend his money, that's fine.
But other teams don't have to, and you can still win.
Soccernomics is like a sports bible, isn't it? And it makes so many good points. And if you were to take it literally, you would look at a lot of things that rugby does and goes, yeah, that's just not not good. And you'd also look at it, and it's contrary to a lot of things that we even say. So one of the big things that Soccernomics says is invest in your stadiums. And to be fair to the RFU, they have actually said, well, you can't come up unless you've got a reasonably sized stadium. So I don't think it's always like a necessary road to success. And the other thing is as well, do we want it where some clubs are going to be like Newcastle and don't spend to the new salary cap, whereas other clubs are going to be spending through the roof? I mean, I'm not sure that's going to be a great situation for anyone. Sale are competitive now because the salary cap, well, they were spending up to the old salary cap. But
yeah, when they had Lude and Faf and others.
I mean, we've had two clubs go out of existence. I am a strong proponent of the salary cap staying at a level where everyone can afford it. And if you can't afford it, you should make a declaration, then you have to leave. There shouldn't be a maximum spend so much. There should be a minimum spend. You have to spend a minimum amount.
They do that in the MLR.
They do, and they do it in the NFL too.
So I would raise it, but I would also have that minimum spend. But I'm not against having a 7-8 million maximum and a 5 million minimum. So
No,
you've got in that band
an 8 million maximum
and a 7.9 million minimum.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
very close.
I wouldn't do that.
If you want to hold £1 million back for tactical reasons throughout the season, feel free to be my guest. If you want to bring in, an ace back row for 6 months and spend all of your money on that to get you over the hill,
yeah. Bring in Mike Brown with 10 weeks to go.
We could pick that up more on the domestic podcast as we talk about Premiership matters. But let's move on to Ireland, Scotland.
Didn't see it, so can we talk about Wales, Italy instead?
We can do.
I didn't see that either. But,
you are such a rugby hipster that you only care about the domestic game.
I just don't care about rugby.
Scotland Ireland was so much fun.
Tell me why it's fun. I'll react to it. I don't even know the score. Tell me the score first.
So Scotland 7, Ireland 22 in Murrayfield.
At half time, it was Scotland 7, Ireland 8, and Scotland and Ireland had 2 hooker injuries. And Gary Ringrose with a very concerning looking injury. And Caelan Doris got injured.
And Hendo. They were dropping like flies.
Yeah.
4 of that starting pack. But JB, this is something that you actually will be interested in.
Is this to do with a certain front rower?
Multiple front rowers.
Please, do tell me.
So Dan Sheehan goes off.
Yep.
Then Ronan Kelleher comes on. Immediately after half-time, first line out, Kelleher isn't throwing in.
Uh-oh.
He's lined up in midfield.
Uh-oh.
Van der Fleer's throwing in.
Yeah.
I like this.
Is this no one knew. So Sam Warburton's and John Barclay, your mate, Tim.
I love him. Nice moustache he's got as well.
And left sweet wrappers in your coat once.
He did leave sweet wrappers in my coat.
You guys are tight.
Got a man crush on that man. He's such a lovely bloke.
So they're like, what is going on? Is this a tactic so they can use? But I could kind of understand it with Sheehan because he's a good broken field runner, lining him up in midfield. But Kelleher, less so. Anyway, next line out comes, same again. Kelleher stood in midfield. Van der Fleer throws in. It's trying to work out, and then I noticed it, but no one in comms mentioned this. Kelleher makes a tackle in midfield. He could only use one arm. He had one shoulder down by his side, and he makes a tackle with one arm. 3 minutes after this, he goes off. He can take no more.
He has not been watching Owen Farrell tackling videos.
So then Cian Healy comes on. Cian Healy packs down at hooker.
Good lad.
In the scrum.
Good lad.
Now, Cian Healy, who's also recently moved to tight head, he's historically a loose head, playing a bit of tight head, and now he's a triple threat officially. It might not have internationally played tight head.
Hookers don't hook anymore anyway, do they?
No.
The scrum
They
half,
have to. You got to strike.
No, the scrum halves throw it through the second row's legs.
I mean, you've got to pretend to strike.
You're supposed to. They don't, though, do they?
You've got to just cross your legs and let it hit one of them.
Do you know, like, scouts get badges? Right? I think they should have... Bath have badges too, don't they? So Bath will put, like...
a national flag.
Badge.
Yeah.
If you're a triple threat front row, there should be a World Rugby sanctioned badge which you put underneath. I don't know what that is, but it's like a triple... You've got to have
I think like gold shorts or
gold
socks or
something
like that.
I think it's like magnificent.
And also your pay packet will reflect it.
Yeah, well, Hall of Famers have gold coats, so I think not only should it be playing things, something they can wear around town.
So it went to those three packing down and unsurprised. So it was Porter, Keane Healy and Furlong, who got replaced by Tom O'Toole eventually, packing down in the scrum. And the scrum went well, as you might expect.
Yeah.
And it was Josh van der Fleer thrown into line out, which I think he missed 2 by my count, but he must have... It was probably 80% success rate.
Yeah.
Which was not bad.
Right. Bear with me. Bear with me here. So have you seen the NFL move? I say NFL, American football move, where they line up a wide receiver who can throw a ball in the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Then line up the quarterback out wide, and this is so brilliant, right? And then
is that where they do a lateral to the quarterback,
so do the lateral,
and then the quarterback? Yeah.
So Kelleher is standing towards the back of the scrum. He runs like a centre, and Van der Fleer throws it over him. Kelleher catches the ball. Then he turns round, and then he can throw, not straight, because it's no longer a line-out, to his line-out jumpers, who can then land and then maul. Therefore, there's no not straight. That is brilliant.
But you can't lift.
Why?
In general play, can you?
Yeah,
lift?
you
can
lift
lift from a kick.
From kicks.
Can you lift in general play?
Don't see why you can't. You can lift. You can't lift to defend penalties, but yeah, you can lift from kicks.
Maybe.
Maybe kicks it.
Yeah, surely, because you do it.
So you put Johnny Sexton.
Johnny Sexton.
You do on kickoffs, don't you?
You do. Yeah, you can lift.
So
from
presumably
kicks.
that's open play, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything conditional, but yeah, let's say yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I like it, JB. I don't see any downside to that.
This is Glenn Delaney level thinking.
Well, if you
that's the highest praise I can give myself.
So imagine the first time you rock this out, it's World Cup quarterfinal, because that's as far as Ireland are going to go.
Yeah.
Well, it is, because they're going to play France or New Zealand. But
oh my God!
So they're on the 5 metre line. They're attacking line out. They do exactly what you've just described. New Zealand are set up to hit a driving maul, but they just disintegrate. They just melt into the floor because of the shift, the JB shift.
They're actually, it gets better, right? Because they're ready to jack up their defensive jumpers. The ball goes across over all their defensive jumpers. Game over. Ronan Kelleher gets the ball, launches it back in.
What's to stop?
Unopposed. Unopposed, not straight.
See, there must be a law about lifting in open play unless it's from a kick, because otherwise, what's to stop you having the ball or catch it? So Ronan Kelleher not only catches the ball at the back of over the top, he catches it whilst being lifted. And he's held up until he throws it to the next person, who then gets lifted in another pod.
I don't think there's any reason why you can't do it.
Because you can't tackle that person that's being lifted.
It's a fair point. The laws might not strictly prohibit it.
Well, don't do it now.
It's just not been tested. Yeah.
You can't do it right now.
Yes, exactly.
The only problem is you can't make forward. You can't make any forward motion. You can only go backwards.
Maybe this
in
is
your pods of 3.
When Eddie Jones said he doesn't want to give away their tactics for the World Cup,
this is what he had in mind.
This is exactly what he was talking about.
Do you know what? I know we're having a laugh, but all those injuries you talked about, this is what makes this Ireland team so special. Is that whether it was Finlay Bealham and co, and without Jameson Gibson Park in that first game against France, whether it's this game when 4 players go down, they have. And this runs contrary to what I was saying about, England have average players and all the rest of it. And maybe it is more about the system and everyone being on the same page, because it doesn't. You could put any one of the England players into that Ireland system and they probably look great.
Yeah, because the system is so good, and with the number of players that have been missing throughout this tournament, and they still get the results that they've been getting, and even in the game, and even not only to have players dropping out and lose 4 of your starting pack, but then to have the total disruption of, well, you have got no hooker, but you can still scrummage and your line-out is still 80% effective. That is really, really impressive.
It really is.
I must say, I was a little bit disappointed with Scotland not trying to exploit the line-out more. and not kicking the corners more.
Like Warburton was saying it in commentary. I was thinking it. I reckon anyone with
get it
it's
out.
odd. Like,
Just get it out. Get it.
Yeah, because Scotland naturally
through.
Scotland's game plan is to kick a fair bit, but or kick when they've got no option to run it, but to keep it in play. That's what they do. But it just seemed like, no, stick it out.
Just
and then
grub a kick through, out, and then get 2 jumpers up.
Yeah.
Put pressure on the line out. And they didn't seem to do either anywhere near as much as they should have done.
That was a shame. And I suppose it was disappointing from Scotland that they didn't press on in the second half, but I think they were just out on their feet. And I think that's to Ireland's credit. And I always thought, Matt Hansen, he's quite a handy player. He's all right, but I didn't think he was as good as he is.
Well, I probably one further to him. I actively disliked him because he usurped Robbie Balogun.
Well, yeah.
I thought he had a great game. I thought
two great games in a row.
Deserved man of the match.
He just makes things happen. When I've seen him play, he just makes his own. He just looks like he's continuously lucky.
Whoever in the Irish system, I think it might be Andy Friend at Connacht. Whoever got him over, like, fair play.
Yeah, he's a good player, and he doesn't look, because he's not a particularly big bloke. He's quite tall and lithe, but his distribution is good. His running is very good. He's great in the air. His take for, I can't remember which one of the tries, was fantastic. He scored one of his own, which was a tremendous finish with Duan pressing him into the corner. And he had lovely little kind of show, go, and then give for the Jack Conan try, although Duan was at fault for that. Yeah. I don't know if you know, Duan jammed in when it was it was two defenders on 2. He would have been marking Jack Conan, and he's about the same size as Jack Conan, so he should be able to stop him. And he steps in, leaving Conan free to waltz into the corner.
There was a lot of good performances. Porter played 80 minutes, was great. Peter O'Mahony was brilliant.
Peter O'Mahony was brilliant.
He was fantastic.
He put a great hit in on, was it Kinghorn or Kyle Stain? Late on. Put a great hit down the outside channel. But he was great all match.
Yeah, Jameson really Gibson Park, when he came off the bench, was probably the difference maker. So fast.
Yeah.
And here's a fact about next weekend. Right, so Johnny Sexton could well win the Triple Crown, the Six Nations Championship, the Grand Slam, and become the greatest, highest point scorer in the Six Nations history in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day weekend.
Wow.
That is cool.
Very cool. But that does mean that he's not going to win a 5th star for Leinster or a World Cup if he does that. So
correct. You've got your choice, Johnny.
You can trade it all for one of those other 2 things.
Yeah, can't have it all, Johnny. It's very cool. Very cool game.
Yeah. What was I going to say then? Yeah, Scotland, a little bit disappointing with Scotland.
First half, though, great.
First half, they were.
Did you see the meter stats at half time? I looked and went, that can't be right. It had Scotland for first half only 40 minutes. Scotland 421 metres, Ireland 450 metres.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if that was true, because
that's what it flashed up on the BBC stats. I mean, maybe. Yeah. I mean, bear in mind the BBC. Maybe they had some work experience kid who'd never done it.
Work
before.
Experience kid who hates Gary Lineker. Yeah. The only person willing to do it.
Just on so line-up throwing, people are making a big deal out of Van der Fleer's line-up.
Van der Fleer,
right? Because of course it's beyond the pale. What was the skeleton that you and I were talking about upstairs, which was meant to be very hot? Oh, yeah, kit covering.
Yeah.
Kit covering. So, throwing a ball into a line-out, I think covering positional play for back 3, covering kicks, should be the 2 most easy things. And I'll tell you another one which we should all know about. England conceding a try when you could see it was going to happen because they don't know the laws in the try.
Yeah, there's no offside line when the ball's on the try line.
Could you see that? I could see that coming from a mile off.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't believe it was. It's like a slow motion car crash.
Yeah,
yeah. As soon as it's over the line, there's no offside line. Just tap it down. Now, I do think that should not have been a try, and we actually saw this in the Ireland-Scotland game. So the tackle was completed, Once the tackle's completed, the tackler's got to let go of the tackle's completed 5 metres from the try line.
DuPont didn't let him go.
Yeah, and that actually, because I can't remember who it was, but in the Ireland game, someone got dragged into touch from 5 metres out, which you see that all the time. Yeah. Tackle completed, you've got to let go, you keep dragging them into touch, it's a penalty against you. That's what it should have been in the England game.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So, back to the line-up throwing. Everyone's going wild about Van der Fleer on Twitter. Just had a quick look now. There is no excuse to not be able to throw a line out if you're a professional rugby player. No excuse. No one's trying to tackle you. You're throwing it to the same place over and over again, and you throw it in your own time without moving, which are all the things you don't do when passing and catching a ball.
I understand your point, but then that's also like saying there's no excuse if you're a darts player not to hit treble 20 every time. All you've got to do is hit treble 20.
I agree with that point. I just can't see how they can't do it. And when they do it, it's like, oh my God, that's absolutely magical. I think there should be at least 3 players in your squad that should be able to constantly throw lineouts.
I think that's just sensible. And obviously, Ireland are with you. Andy Farrell and the Ireland team, they're with you.
There you go.
And just from a, I mean, I knew that I realised this when I was playing at Newbury and at Manchester that I was a flanker, number 8 blindside, but if I could occasionally play hooker, it got me more money because I sat on the bench.
Exactly
a
right.
lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I played prop, because I really wanted to play first team.
There was only 4 spots on the bench then, and I went, all right, okay, so if I learn to play hooker, I'll get my match fee and I'll get first team appearances.
Or play these games.
Cian Healy, age whatever he is now, 34. He can extend his career by
Carl Ferns, practice prop.
I have told him so many times now, you're very, very strong. You should be playing prop. Not having any of it.
In this game, I was a little bit disappointed with 2 Scotland players, Hogg and Finn.
Hogg, I totally agree with you on Hogg.
Hogg is really, really.
I don't think.
I'm out of form at the moment.
I'm a big Hogg fan as well, certainly historically.
Likewise.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's playing.
He looks heavy
well.
to me.
He is quite heavy. There's all that hair.
Yeah, there's a lot of hair, isn't there?
And those teeth. A lot of hair and a lot of teeth.
Yeah, he's just not playing. I guess when you've set such high standards in the past, it will always be hard to maintain those standards. And I'm sure if he's just showing up on the scene now, we'd all be saying that it was amazing. But compared to what he's done in the past, he doesn't look himself.
I agree with you. I think this is probably, it's a bit like the conversation we were having. It's a bit like Owen Farrell, actually. I would say now's not the time to ditch him. Wait till after the World Cup, because you just got to have. I would have enough faith in Stuart Hogg that he'll come right.
Yeah,
he'll come good.
I think so too, but he's not playing particularly well, and he didn't play well in this game. And I don't think Finn had a particularly good game. He had a few moments where he tried to force the pass, or he took too long with the ball and got kind of half tackled and ended up throwing a poor pass, or like his no-look pass that just went a yard forward, that kind of thing. The best moment of deception passing from the Scotland team was the Tuipulotu to Hugh Jones deception with Finn Russell out the back as a foil, for then a bit of a no-look pass from Tuipulotu to Jones. Yeah. That was the best moment from a skill-based perspective.
Tuipulotu's been great. He was brilliant again.
Yeah, he's good. Hugh Jones, very, very good. I thought Duhan was. The stats I've got in front of me is he made 85 metres with ball in hand and beat 6 defenders, but I still think he was kept quite quiet by that Ireland defence. I'm surprised that his figures were that great.
Yeah.
And actually, I wanted to mention, so good and bad tackling low. I know in the future when JB's a councilman, the whole world is going to be tackling low, tackling around
100%. Anatomical waist and below.
Yes.
Allegedly.
So Duhan was stopped 3 times by excellent low tackles. One by James Lowe and 2 by Hugo Keenan. One at each end of the field, actually. His tackle 5 yards from his own line on Duhan was brilliant. All going low. But then you have the ring rose on Kinghorn's hip. Now he got his head in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But head on hip in the same space.
Yeah, I thought exactly the same thing. I thought the zealots on this tackle height thing are very quickly going, look over there, don't pay attention to Ringrose, just look, there's something else going on over there, don't look.
Yeah.
Because that was a prime example.
Yes. Yeah. And the good and bad, and I am generally an advocate for tackling low.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly effective way to do it, but it's not without risk.
Not without risk.
And nothing's without risk, I guess. So
the risk is the reward.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Any more from Scotland Island at this point?
No, disappointing to see Caelan Doris go off so early.
Yeah.
I think probably all the other injuries they can manage, and Caelan Doris they can manage without him.
Jack Conan was good. He was a couple of critics today.
Yeah, scored a try. I mean, he's a Lions starter from the most recent tour, so it's not that surprising. But I just think Caelan Doris has been in such good form.
Yeah, he has. But they've only got to play England next week. It's fine.
Yeah, they'll put 60 points on England easy.
Yeah. Should we move on to the other game then? And I'll do so via this email actually because we've already mentioned Gary Lineker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know where this is going, and I can't wait to talk about this.
It's an email from Kevin. Thank you very much. Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. He says, lads, blah blah fan blah LTBP. What is Gareth Thomas doing on BBC, the Sin Bin programme? But Gary Lineker is off air. I think I know whose actions are more egregious. I'm disgusted. In fairness, the show is an embarrassment to rugby, so there is an argument that it's actually a fair casting call.
Yes.
No, I'm still disgusted. And then a minute later, he follows up with an email saying, oh God, he's on ITV. I can't wait for the pod. I need some balance.
Yeah.
Let's pull the string on the back of JB and go.
Well, look, I'm kind of with Kevin. It's a disgrace that this man is on TV. I said so a few weeks ago. And the only thing I can really think of is it is imperative for whoever runs these TV companies, it is imperative that no matter what crime has been committed, allegedly or otherwise, that we must see a gay man do the rugby. Doesn't matter that this guy's been accused of some of the most heinous things that you can do, particularly in relation to the gay community, who he apparently is meant to represent so well. It's just the fact that he is who he is. He can get away with anything. And the message it sends is just awful. The guy is awful. I never thought he was particularly good at punditry anyway, but he was there because he provided balance and whatnot, and he does have an incredible rugby CV regardless of what his crimes are, allegedly or otherwise. He has no place on our screens, and what makes me so upset is just how insincere everybody in the media is, and everybody who is supposedly one of the good guys, one of the be kind crowd, all of these people who've got nothing to say about it. This guy has ruined another man's life, and he did so by taking away not just, he did it by taking away all the support structures that should be there to support someone who is a victim of this kind of behaviour. So whether it be the Terence Higgins Trust, whether it be mobilising his celebrity friends, if you want to talk about someone who is disadvantaged, talk about Gareth Thomas's partner, who had the full weight of the media and everyone else sort of implicitly backing Gareth Thomas. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I think if BBC pundits or other pundits refuse to go on air because Gary Lineker's not allowed on air, which, more power to them, do what you need to do. How can you sit in studio with this guy? I mean, I got a message today on Twitter by an ex-Welsh international asking me exactly the same thing. How on earth can this man be on TV? And the answer is, I think the broadcasters are so obsessed with the diversity agenda that it's like trolling us now. You must watch this gay man. You must watch him. Because if you don't, you are a bigot. And it doesn't matter what this guy is accused of or what this guy has even done. He just must be there because of what his identity is. And I think it's up. It's not just disgusting, as we see it. It's actually demeaning to the whole gay community. The whole gay community. So, yeah, I loathe the man. I loathe the man. He shouldn't be there.
Just out of curiosity, the former Welsh international that got in touch, did they get in touch on a direct message or because they didn't want to? But they because I'm just curious about how this works. Sometimes I can imagine there's a lot. I can imagine there's so many people that agree with you.
Yeah.
To greater or lesser degrees. So they may not have as strong an opinion, but they may think, "Oh, that doesn't feel right." But they are afraid to say so. Whereas it seems like there was no filter for anyone to. And I'm not saying whether they should or shouldn't. I'm not saying that. I'm not putting a value judgment on this. I'm saying a lot of people felt very confident to come forward and say exactly how they felt on Gary Lineker.
They're okay to persecute, say, Israel Folau. I mean, that's fair game. He thought something wrong. He literally had the wrong thoughts, and that was dangerous. Whereas Gareth Thomas, by all accounts, is actually dangerous. But one of them is allowed a career in rugby and the other one isn't. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. Look at the treatment of Paddy Jackson. There are some people on Twitter with huge platforms saying that they will donate money every time Paddy Jackson scores a point. They've written huge Twitter threads about why Paddy Jackson should not be playing rugby. And I can agree with a lot of what they said, but I can't agree with them when they're so insincere and they have nothing to say about Gareth Thomas. And that's what gets me. It's the insincerity of the positions. They are completely and utterly morally bankrupt and insincere. And it's just disgusting to see. You know, it's a stain on the game that Gareth Thomas has anything to do with rugby at the moment.
It is just important to say, and I agree with the thrust of what you're saying completely. I just think it's also fair so that no one can argue that no one can strawman us in any way to say that he wasn't found guilty of anything criminal.
Nope.
However, if you look at his statement that he had to make as part of the out-of-court settlement, it is shocking.
It is very shocking.
It is shocking.
Yeah, there's no contrition there. He's never said sorry. He's never said anything.
But just the act that I think is like it's known fact of stripping the labels off the drugs that he was taking in order to hide his condition.
He knowingly hid his condition and then knowingly engaged in whatever. You know, he put his partner at risk knowingly. However, there was no liability but there was an out of court settlement. But that strikes me as no different to Paddy Jackson, as you say, who was not found guilty of anything. But the messages,
no different to Prince Andrew.
But the messages,
it's no different. Quite. It's exactly the same.
Quite. And so that's why I asked about the former Welsh international, because my imagination is what I'm imagining is he has just as strong opinion as you, but is afraid to say so.
Yeah, Gareth Thomas has gone after journalists. He's gone after people who have accused him of stuff. He's gone after everyone he possibly can to silence them and ruin their lives, and he does so using the weapons of bigotry and homophobia, and look at the mental anguish you've caused me, but no consideration at all for the mental anguish that he might have caused others. And everyone who is on the social justice side of the of the rugby world, I often think their contributions are actually very valuable. Having nothing to say about it is absolutely horrendous, and they should be called out for it.
And just to be clear, would you like Israel Folau, Paddy Jackson and Gareth Thomas to be treated the same, whether that's they all are allowed fair game, or would you like them all to be...
To be fair...
Because you can't kind of sit in both camps.
If all things are equal, all three can work in my world. All three can work. Now, Israel Folau can work whatever. He just said some nasty things. He is allowed to work... And what do they call it? It's being consequenced.
Well, he posted a meme that was...
He posted some nasty words.
He posted a meme that was...
And apparently that's
words,
horrendously dangerous. Horrendously dangerous. So dangerous that he can't possibly ever play again, and he needs his contract terminated, and he needs online services removed from him, and he can't be platformed, and this, that and the other. Paddy Jackson and Israel Folau, they do deserve equal treatment. Equal treatment. Now, if Gareth Thomas gets fired from his current posts and gets another job... I don't really have a huge issue with that. I will never like or respect Gareth Thomas. I don't even think he's good at his job. The only difference I find between Gareth Thomas and Paddy Jackson really is that Paddy Jackson's really good at his job, and that's basically about it. But yeah, they should both be able to work, and people can have their own opinion on them both. But to have one opinion on one and another on another, no, thank you. In fact, I know, I'd go one further. I actually think Gareth Thomas's crimes are far worse. Far, far worse.
Yeah, I can't help but think they are. It is worse. Like,
yeah.
Paddy Jackson, like, we spoke about this at length at the time. It was very bad, but I don't think it is as bad.
No,
I really don't think it is as bad.
And the reason is, it's not the end crime. You can't just... compare end crimes. It's like comparing what's the worst type of cancer. I mean, it's just they're both bad. But what gets me is the lack of apology, the cover-up, the utilisation of powerful friends, the corruption of AIDS charities. Like the Terence Higgins Trust should just shut down. It's absolutely worthless.
It's an interesting...
The hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy is incredible. It is an interesting point, though, that Israel Folau and Paddy Jackson are good at their current jobs. Mm-hmm. Gareth Thomas was good at his former job. He's not particularly good at his current job. He's only there for points that you've already made, JB.
He's there completely on merit.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
But when Paddy Jackson and Israel Folau get to the end of their careers and they would be considering moving into jobs that they may or may not be any good at, they will not be doing that.
They will not.
They will have zero opportunity to do that.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we've seen another player this week, Chris Farrell, who's moved from Munster over to Oyonnax. I think he has an active case against him in France, I believe. That's kind of how I expect Gareth Thomas to be treated, really. You know, he was never stood down.
That would make sense.
Yep. It's just like the two-tier treatment and the hypocrisy. But I can't overemphasise enough how disgusted I am with the lack of noise from people on Twitter with a platform who are so vocally defensive. It's not vocally defensive. They're so absent in this argument.
But what? Because
it's absence.
There's obviously been this big thing recently, and you mentioned it before, about people taking a stand for Gary Lineker and refusing to go on screen as a consequence of Gary Lineker being suspended or whatever it was by the BBC, stepped down by the BBC. But no one's taking a stance on this.
No one's taking not mentioning it.
So,
can you imagine Paddy Jackson showing up in a studio?
Yeah.
There'd be editorials, there'd be... The problem with rugby is...
I'm just trying to think this through my head, but Gary Lineker being suspended is worse than what Gareth Thomas played through.
Do you think Gabby Logan, for example, just picking a name at random, do you think she knows what do you think she's read?
Must,
do you think she's read his statement about what he did?
She must do.
You
she
can't
must have done.
Not know this.
Yeah,
everybody knows this
because she's in rugby circles as well as a consequence of her husband.
But then I can
as well as working within the rugby circle.
I can talk about this because if ITV called up and said, "Tim, we need you on next week's game. You're part of a team including Gareth Thomas," I'd go, yeah.
I've got to say, I'm also not a big fan of targeting people that work with other people.
So I think the point here is not Gareth Thomas shouldn't be on. It's that there should be consistency about how people are treated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The inconsistency is maddening.
Yes.
It's maddening. Basically, you can commit any crime you want if you're a certain identity. Feel free. Go wild. And it just stinks. It just stinks. It's more important that you see a gay man on TV than that gay man actually
I'm bringing this back to rugby. This is because this is even more thrown into focus because of rugby values. Like again, when you go to every rugby club in the land, there's certain codes of conduct, expectations of behaviour, but again, I think that's the important. I think I ended on the right point. You're not saying, and I'm not saying, and nobody's saying Gareth Thomas shouldn't be allowed to work. It's the fact that it's the silence from people who have prevented other people from working.
Hypocrisy and differing standards.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and it just makes everything that rugby does, it just makes it look so hollow. So we kicked off the game against France, and the cameras panned to some nonsense bloody campaign about rugby against racism. Or next day it's Rainbow Laces this, or what was it? What was the other thing the other day they were celebrating? International Women's Day. Yeah, yada yada yada. Yeah, when it comes to it, when they actually need to uphold some standards, it's very easy to throw someone under the bus who is unpopular, or shall I say has an unpopular identity. But when it comes to it, they don't want to do anything about Gareth Thomas. No one says a word. Just everyone crack on. Everyone just ignore it. The quote in The Guardian was the best, which is, "It is unfortunate that Gareth Thomas finds himself in this position, as if he's done nothing wrong. it's just an accident. It was not. It was not, and we should do well to remember that.
And again, read if you want to. If you don't understand what we're talking about, read Gareth Thomas's own statement in the non-liability out of court settlement. Anyway, as for the rugby itself, Wales are back.
Ish.
What? Yes.
Kinda. A little bit.
Semi.
Black bonus point win. So
not to be sniffed at.
29-17 away in Rome. It wasn't. So I was very frustrated at Italy in this first half for a couple of reasons. One, why did no one tackle Liam Williams? Five missed tackles for that try. The other tries you can kind of forgive them. Rio Dow was a lucky bounce. The penalty try, things like that happen. And Faletau was a nice break and offload. Liam Williams, that should have been stopped. And on the flip side, there's 2 Italy tries. Italy non-tries in that first half because they didn't score in that first half, but they blew 2 tries. There was the pass down the right wing, lovely, I think it was a line-out move. The final pass with a 2-on-1 just went straight into touch.
Yeah.
And then what would have been one of the tries of the season, where Brex drops it over the line. Was it Canone, the younger?
Lorenzo.
Yeah. Should have given it 5 seconds earlier, held on too long, and then it was a kind of forced pass with too many defenders around. So that, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but you take out the Liam Williams try and you had 2 Italian tries in. The second half is a totally different game. It's irrelevant because as it was already over by half-time. Mm-hmm. Wales had already basically won, and Italy were then just playing for a bit of pride.
Yeah.
Which is kind of business as usual for Italy. They've got to shift from that, making those kind of mistakes and playing gallantly for a bit of pride towards the end of the game, and not making those mistakes and actually being in it to win it.
Agreed. A bold Taulupe Faletau I loved.
Yeah.
Just pure aesthetics I'm talking now.
But he had a good game as well.
He had a good game as well. In fact, so I was looking at the Wales selection by Warren Gatland going, what on earth is he playing at? It's just seemed bizarre. And so Chris Chuns is playing well. He's not in the 23.
Yeah, totally dropped.
Jack Morgan was completely dropped. Now he's back starting. Yeah. It just seemed schizophrenic. And I was like, what are you doing here? I have to say, some of the big players, Justin Tipperick, Liam Williams, Taulupe Faletau, Rhys Webb.
Yeah, Rhys Webb was
some
an
of those
interesting
experienced
call.
players look good.
Yeah.
Rhys Webb, especially.
And I've got to say, I do like the centre partnership. It needs a bit more time, but Hawkins and Grady.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think we could be going in, JB as a Welshman and a massive Dan Biggar fan?
Huge Dan Biggar fan.
Do you think we could be going into a World Cup with Dan Biggar basically as bench fodder?
Owen Williams is a fascinating choice. I mean, he, for the longest time, made no mark on the Welsh team whatsoever.
Yeah.
Outside of playing 12. I think he had 2 caps at 12.
Yeah.
And I thought his career was basically over.
Yeah.
At Tigers, I thought he was good, but I think even people at Tigers would tell you he was second best to Freddie Burns. He doesn't have the natural skills of Freddie Burns, but what he does have in abundance is authority on the field. Allegedly, he's a very, very good talker. Disappears to Japan, don't hear from him, shows up back at Worcester. Good when he played for Worcester, but was never fit.
Yeah.
In fact, did he not come down with an Achilles injury, which is an utter nightmare? But he's found some form, and more power to him.
Yeah, found some form for Ospreys, and he finds himself in the number 1 shirt or the number 10 shirt.
So do Ospreys have Williams and Anscombe on the books?
But Anscombe's not been playing, has he?
Not been fit.
What a horrible few years he has had.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, in terms of unavailable fly halves, Ospreys couldn't have done much better than Williams and Anscombe.
Oh, Myler.
Is Myler still there?
He was there, and then they brought in Williams, and he usurped him.
Where's Myler now?
I think he's still there.
Oh, is he? Right.
He was Anscombe's understudy, but then they sort of thought, actually, I reckon we need someone a little better. Owen Williams has not got a job. Let's snap him up.
Yeah. Well, if he wants to play for Wales, he's got to play in Wales, hasn't he? So,
in terms of injury-prone fly halves, they're 2 great ones.
Hang on a minute. what would Wales be doing now? I mean, I guess they'd just play bigger, wouldn't they? But they obviously like Williams because he's played 2 games in a row.
They like Jared Evans as well.
They've never played him, though.
No, they never played him. But
So, never played Jared Evans. Ans comes injured. For whatever reason it is, Bigger's not in favour, although Bigger is a world-class operator and they'll be fine with him. So you've got this guy. So what would have happened if Worcester hadn't gone under? Because that's the reason he's there.
Yeah.
They couldn't have played him otherwise.
They would have
you're
just
right.
been bigger. Because he doesn't have 25 caps. Or
Oh, good point. What does he need now? 25, is it?
see, that's what Dan Bigger should have looked at the long term and just used his Toulon money to prop up Worcester for a few months more, just till the World Cup.
What was he thinking? But no, he didn't.
I will say on Italy, it's exciting to watch. It looks slightly naive. Well, I don't know. They attack from everywhere, from deep everywhere, and when they get caught and turned over, they just get they self implode. Unfortunately, it's kind of a very high risk strategy. They got to the outside all afternoon. They just carved Wales up, but of course, like you say, exactly like you were talking about with the 1 in 20 kicking strategy. That on the 1 out of 20 it'll work. It's like Italy.
Yeah. Run it 20 times.
But when you do get turned over, it's a penalty, 3 points. It's turnover, a momentum shift.
Yeah.
Wales go and score.
So
you only get the 1 try in 20.
Yeah, you give 5 point scoring opportunities away to the opposition, but 1 point scoring opportunity for you. I don't like those odds.
It feels a little bit like Bristol before they rebalanced their game and then finished top of the Premiership, when they slightly tweaked it a little bit when the first year they came in the Premiership, and it was just like, it was amazingly fun to watch.
Did Owen Williams
but it was bonkers.
Did Owen Williams play the whole game?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't remember.
They didn't have a 10 on.
Oh no, they didn't have a 10.
No, that's
They
why
didn't
I
have 10 on the
asked.
bench.
There's
It
no
was
bigger.
So Joe Hawkins would have stepped in.
Would have stepped in,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he did.
It's like France didn't have a 10 on the bench, but they had Thibaut Flamont, the former Loughborough 15 fly half. They could have stepped in there. I don't know if the commentary team mentioned that, but they usually do.
Who have Italy got next?
Can't recall it. I was Italy have
Scotland.
Maybe they'll win that. I'm not going to say they're improving. We say that every year. It does genuinely feel it, but
yeah, this is a better
having it.
incarnation of this Italy team, but they're going to finish with the wooden spoon.
Yes.
And potentially nil points.
Yep.
Or have they got 1 point? They might have got 1 point.
Yes.
Next week's fixtures, unless there's anything else to go off.
No, let me think. So Ireland will win, France will win, and Scotland will win. Any difference?
3 home wins.
Yeah.
I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah, and the Super Saturday's taken on a slightly less exciting complexion.
All around, really.
Well,
because we're not holding out a lot of hope of England beating Ireland.
Yeah, that's the
crux.
It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen
in any shape or form. If England do beat Ireland, let's just have a quick look at this.
Well, Ireland didn't get the bonus point. They were threatening, but they didn't get the bonus point. So that's opened things up for France. If the very unlikely event.
So let's just talk about this. Where are you boys watching Super Saturday on Saturday?
Well, I don't know. Has this changed now? I mean, no, we're still watching JB's last game of rugby union.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, apparently it's not my last game because we're going to play some cup, but the RFU have not confirmed what the cup structure is.
Or indeed what the tackle height is.
Or the tackle height is. So I don't want to play any cups. I'm done. So
your last game of competitive league rugby.
Unless the laws are rescinded or don't come into force for next year, yeah, that is it. Done. So quite frankly, I can't wait for it to be over.
So we'll be at Didsbury Tock H, and watching the games there.
So have you got a kick-off time at Tock?
Well, I'll tell you on the next podcast.
Oh, domestic.
You little tease.
Indeed.
But yeah, we'll be watching as much as we can based on Didsbury Tock H's kick-off time. And
I thought I might do... I'll be doing a little YouTube video for each of the games. I thought I might do one for Tock H as well in that same style.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be 3 home wins, and it's going to be not as exciting a Super Saturday as previous ones have been.
Yes.
I think.
Although, if Just because of the sequence, it's Ireland, England last, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's just.
Is it 1?
It's 12:30.
Yeah.
2:45, and then 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now, if France get a big bonus point win, so get the bonus point, and so they've got a 20 points difference. Difference to catch up. So if they get a 40-point win, say, against Wales, which is not impossible,
Nope.
it will put a bit of pressure on Ireland because Ireland then know they've got to win. Or if they don't win, then they've got to get the bonus point and then protect that. If it's getting tight, they've got to protect that points difference as well.
Ireland are going to have to be going deep in their squad in some positions.
I think they can do it. Yeah,
I think they can.
Robbie Herring should be back, available.
And who's the lad? The other one. I was thinking it was Scannell, but there's not
Cronin. Not. There's a young lad up at Ulster, Stuart Moore, his try scoring rate is amazing. He's a handy player. He's maybe a bit young, but get the kids in, as we always say.
Get the kids in.
Rightly so.
Always get all of the kids in all the time.
And briefly, what changes? You're Steve Borthwick now. I'm handing you the England team selection, ins, outs.
Faz in, Slade out, but then you've got to put someone in. No, you're going to have to keep Slade in, unless you're going to go Ford and Faz together. Law's in if he's fit, probably to come into the back row.
4.
Ludlam.
Not for Don Brandt.
Maybe for Don Brandt.
Yeah, everybody stays the same. Don Brandt out, Law's in. Tom Curry fit yet?
Don't think so.
All right.
Ben is, though, if you want a Curry.
Ludlam goes to 8. Keep everything the same.
Ludlam to 8 and Law's in if fit. I would go along with that.
I could see that.
I'm going to keep Mitchell. Mitch. No, not against Ireland.
Trust Van Portfleet.
Mitchell comes off the bench. I don't mind that. I would start Farrell at 10.
Start Faz, and then I'm also going to start Arundel instead of Watson.
Yeah, go on. I'm with you.
Stewart did well, actually.
Stewart had a good game.
Stewart did all right.
He's one of the few bright spots.
An interesting point was made to me, though, in that when you think of England's 2019 team, which they didn't win a World Cup, so it's not, I'm not saying it's the be-all and end-all, but you had Watson, you had Daly, and who was the other winger? Who was the other winger in 2019? Daly was
May.
Of course, it was May.
So
May on one leg for the final.
You had a world-class May, you had approaching world-class Watson, and you had Daly, you had 3 rapid players, rapid back 3, and Stewart does totally change the dynamic of England's whole back line. Suddenly, I think part of the reason maybe why some people appear to have a problem with Farrell is when you have Stewart in the back line, you lose the pace
in two
places.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because Stewart is very good in the air, but that is the only area where he's approaching world class, other than
tell you what, his short range carries.
Yeah, other than his size.
Yeah,
but he's a crash ball 15.
Yeah, I mean,
do you want Butch James playing 15?
That's not to knock it, and he is.
Yes,
that's not to knock him, because he is great, and but it's just the blend of the whole.
Yeah, and I think too much is made of his aerial ability.
I agree.
I
completely agree with that.
I think his aerial ability is very, very good, but it's not. Is it that much ahead of alternatives to overlook his shortcomings? I'm not so sure. And he did have a very good game. He was maybe England's best player on the weekend.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced, but other people are saying it should be his shirt for 10 years plus.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be his shirt, but in the same way as Steve Borthwick went, well, we need to approach teams and pick a specific team and a game plan for a specific opponent, which is why you changed Marcus Smith for Owen Farrell. I'm fine with that. That's also a reason why I'm going, should we maybe Arundel at 15?
Oh, now you're talking.
And actually just go, well, let's have a crack.
Yeah.
Let's go. And so I would go, there you go, Farrell 10,
yeah,
Arundel 15.
Yeah.
So then you've got a conductor and you've got his rapid orchestra around him.
Definitely want Arundel on the pitch. Yeah, I could go with that. I did think it was interesting. Borthwick, in his pre-match press conference, because his post-match press conference was
we're on a journey,
tough affair, but his pre-match one, basically it was 20 flavours of the question, why have you dropped Faz and why are you starting Marcus Smith? And he just repeated the same thing every single time. We pick a squad for the team, the game plan we want to play.
Think about it. Think about it.
The opponent's going to play
it seriously. Who we're going to play?
And he just, Gary, they need some better questions.
I do wonder with journalists what the idea is there. If one person's asked it, why are they asking? You probably learn more by asking about the rugby, because that's when he'll give away a nugget of exactly why he's thinking what. If you ask him directly, why you drop one for the other, he won't tell you. But once you start getting into, what's your attacking game plan? How are you going to manipulate this?
Or even you go, Marcus Smith at Twickenham was incredible with his elusive running, and is that what you're hoping to replicate?
Yeah, anything.
How much of how he plays at Harlequins are you looking to map onto how he plays for England? That might be another approach.
They've got so much time with the head coach to ask a variety of questions, and you just learn so much more about the game. You learn so much more.
I will say Steve Borthwick is incredibly straight-batted, and I quite like that. But I quite like that about him.
I have asked Steve Borthwick questions in press conferences, and they have been genuine rugby questions.
Yeah,
and he's given me genuine rugby answers. So if you're looking to create a headline, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So it's your job.
Agreed.
I do think there's a lack of rugby intellect with some of the people that are doing the questioning.
I totally agree.
Not all of them, by the way. There's some
no.
excellent ones out there.
No, I totally agree with the sentiment of what you're saying. But I've been the person holding the microphone, and what you are considering is you're trying to tell the story in a big picture. You're trying to tell a story, and you've got in mind who your audience is.
Yeah.
And at Six Nations weekend, your audience is casual rugby fans who are dipping in.
If the question's already been asked.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. 100%. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. And also, maybe if we treated the audience less stupidly.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well.
Yeah. Still, the best bit of content I've seen in years.
That's a really good point.
Was Roberts and O'Driscoll running through real complex. I mean, it's not complex to them. It's complex to me, and I've played for 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, if I find that complex and fascinating, I think loads of people go, because that's what they want to see, experts being experts. They don't want to be treated like kids. So if you get that kind of content and that kind of detail, I think they'd be happy to provide you with that.
JB, we've all had enough of experts.
Actually, that's a great point. That is a great point. Yeah, and by the way, always remember, expert is a relative term.
Right, so if you want to hear about Super Saturday at Didsbury Talk H, then check out our other podcast, which is about the domestic and grassroots matters, which is in your feed, which is why you need to hit subscribe, and you can support us at patreon.com/EggChasers. Let the boys play.
Let the boys play.